Hello. In this video we're going to be looking at the actual programming of the PoolDose units, designed to be very user-friendly. So let's have a look at the display. As you can see, we have 5 buttons on the display of the PoolDose Double, an up and down button which is used to scroll through the menus, a menu button which is used to enter or escape from the menu, a calibration button and a set button. The set button is to view the set points, and you can change those without having to actually go into the menu. So first of all, we go into the menu by holding the menu button, language English, and we can now scroll around using the up down buttons for pH or ORP, redox, or we have an advanced menu. On initial setup, you have to determine how you would like to control the pumps. On these units, we have proportional and we have timed control. Pressing enter, we can see the options available in that. The circulating pump. This is a feature to avoid dosing into a static line. The units come with a cable which can be connected directly to the circulation pump, and if the power stops and this function is enabled, it will prevent the dosing. The next one is frequency. This is a totalizer if you use a pulse input from a water meter or flow sensor to give you a calculation on the amount of water that's passed through the system. Calibration. Here we have pH, which is 2 points. This is using 2 buffer solutions for a very accurate calibration. When calibrating the pH 4 will be the first one to fail. So to prolong the life of your probe, you can actually change that to a 1-point calibration and continue using the probe for a while. ORP is a 1-point calibration. We can also calibrate the temperature by reference or by a probe that's supplied with the system. This is the dosing type. For pH, we currently have this in timed, and in this mode, when you set the settings for the pH, you will get the options to select a time on and a time off. If you select proportional mode, these settings are fixed. Proportional mode means that the unit will automatically run the pump for longer, the further away from the set point you get. This is the same for the ORP or redox. We have an auxiliary relay alarm. The system is password protected, and we can also reset the cal. The reason for this is if you use a reference solution instead of the buffer solutions, you should always reset the calibration if you're going to revert to using the buffer solutions. So you basically go back to a default. We can also reset all parameters, and we have a control panel where we can view the electrical inputs for the probes. Wi-Fi information, and the read normally open is another device we use for detecting flow of water. In the free chlorine version, we have the amperometric cell and we have a little red float. When this float drops, there is no flow going through the system, and so it inhibits the dosing. We have a power on delay for dosing to allow the probes to acclimatise, and a flow delay on the off. If we now escape from that menu, and always remember to save changes if you're happy with your changes. On the display itself, we can see we have a reading now of 5.4 for the pH and 493 for the millivolts. We don't have a temperature reading on this particular unit, but if there was one fitted, it would be displayed. You can also see periodically we're getting a low reading for the pH and the ORP because we're currently using buffer solutions to measure this rather than the actual water parameters. So, setting up the unit, back into the menu once again. And if we take pH for an example, we enter the menu and we first have the set point, which we can adjust using the up or down buttons, but we have to enter the value, make that flash before we can make any changes. After the set point, we have the type of chemical we're dosing for acid to bring the pH down, which would be the common one. The time on, as we mentioned before, this is at 30 seconds. Time off at 60 seconds. This is to allow the chemical to circulate properly in the system and prevent overdosing. The temperature value and an OFA alarm. We've currently got that at 1 minute, but in reality it should be much longer. The purpose of the OFA alarm is to stop the system if it's been dosing for a certain period of time and hasn't reached its set point. The first time, OFA 1, it will just alarm. The second time, it will detect a significant problem and will stop the dosing. We're now back to set point, and again, if we escape out the menu, and if we want, save our changes. To prime the system on first start up, we press and hold the plus and minus button until we see standby and restart. If we then use the down button, we can prime the acid pump, and if we press the menu button, we can prime the chlorine pump. To resume normal operation, we just press the up and down buttons again. In a case of an alarm where the system's been stopped, the standby screen will be displayed, and once the fault is cured, we can press those two buttons again to restore normal operation.